Hello and welcome to this episode of Kerbal Space Program, where I play Kerbal Space Program really badly. So, we were going to do a mission to Mimus, but I kinda lost all the footage for that, so instead we are going to be building a surface outpost on the Moon. We're going to have to modify the rocket a little bit. I have speeded the gameplay up by 2 times because otherwise this episode would have been an hour long and that would have been horrific. And that's by trying to figure out how I'm going to dock this new craft to the rocket. I end up using a decoupler, which is a little horrific as it's explosive. I did fuck up the build a little, but hey ho. I reverted the flight and fixed all the little issues I had with it. Why is this running at 2 times speed? I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, it takes forever. That's our lander can, which is going to be the main part of the landing craft, which is based on lunar excursion modules that NASA used in the late 60s and early 70s on the Apollo program. It's a downloadable content piece because I had to buy all the DLC for this game because I love it so very much. This is my current rocket. It is really quite expensive. You can see in the bottom left hand corner it costs 164,000. I have 1.2 million. I'm not exactly strapped for cash, but I am playing in career mode, which is the hardest mode, so I do have to be somewhat careful because otherwise I'm going to have to start taking tourists places, and that's not fun at all. Now that we're finally happy with that, we're going to add a mobile processing laboratory. I'm not sure if it's part of this contract or the contract for Minmus, because I have a contract to land a base on Minmus as well. But I am going to be leaving this craft behind for at least a while so that I can generate more science, so I can unlock more things. That seems wrong there. Let's move it. I am also going to stick an engine on this thing so that the lander can be detached from the main craft when we have a Moon encounter. And it can then land itself and then hopefully get itself back in orbit when it comes time to collect my Kerbins, because I will be leaving 3 Kerbins behind on the Moon, and as I have 7 Kerbins in total, it's a large amount of my people to be leaving behind. Or do I have 6? I think I've only got 6. I'm not sure, it's 6 or 7. So that's the main bulk of the payload done, and we are going to add this to streamline the rocket a bit so that it's not horrific trying to take off. The controls on this game can be really rather fiddly. This is not the most fun part to do, but there we go. I'm also going to make sure that we have 3 chutes because we usually only have 2 of those side chutes and a main chute on top of the command pod, but as we have the payload attached to the top of the command pod, we have to get rid of the top Shoot. Yeah, I have 6 people. No, Jebediah, you cannot fly this. You are not skilled enough. You can ride along, because we're going to need a pilot to re-enter orbit. There is a minute. Yeah, that's where my other pilot is. Oh yeah, we'll be leaving one of my 2-star pilots behind. I had to revert flight several times to iron out all of the kinks with my rocket. I apologise for being so loud. The game audio is coming over the headset and it's very loud. So I ended up with all my pilots in the command pod and none of them on the lander. Which at this point I have not realised. But we've tilted our burn towards 90 to set ourselves up for a nice orbit. We're looking for an apoapsis above 70 kilometers. Once we hit above there, which is round about now, fantastic, we can cut our engines and prepare to push the nose towards the horizon. Having to use a small amount of thrust there to actually turn the craft because it's very big. It is a ridiculously large payload. I think at this point the rocket is around about 100 tons, or about 107 or something along those lines. And then we do the full burn to... Oop. Yep. Fuel tanks ran out. We've full burn from here to even out, well, to ensure we have an orbit. I'm not exactly the most scientific person. Our first fuel tanks are empty. We use a multi-stage system so that the fuel tanks drain into the main center tank, and as the fuel tanks on those engines run out, I basically ditch them. It's quite useful for efficiency. Travelling at 1,800 meters a second now, we need to be around 2,200 to 2,400 to have a nice orbit. There's our periapsis going up, and it is above 70k, so brilliant. We are now safely in orbit. Now it is time to plot our next manoeuvre for our burn towards the Mun. We just want to get an encounter with the Mun here. That's not going to work. Right about here should do the trick. I believe it's not too far after our periapsis, so we'll be moving quite fast and should be at only 840 delta V. That is quite an efficient burn. I'm pretty happy with that. The manoeuvre nodes are very much just a rough estimation of where you're going to go. There will have to be corrections later on. But things seem to go really well for some strange reason. I have been practicing a lot with this game. Just approaching the node now and full burn. And just monitor those fuel tanks. It's saying in the bottom left that we have 1,200 meters worth of delta V. This isn't entirely true. Because we've got such a heavy payload on the nose of the ship, it is reducing the amount of delta V that we actually have. but because I'm going to drop the payload while doing a flyby of the moon, our delta V will skyrocket. If I had this amount of delta V legitimately at this point, I would be very, very concerned. I would not be able to get back from the moon. Or at least it would be a very hot re-entry, which nobody wants. And we end up with a much better line on the moon than we had initially anticipated. So we're going to drop another maneuver node at the periapsis. Oh no, we are warping over there so that we can detach the lander. We're going to point ourselves retrograde so that we do not crash into ourselves. Deploy the covering. And then, as soon as I decouple this, our delta V jumps to 2,100 meters per second, which is fantastic. We really do not need to worry about getting home. So we're going to switch to the lander now. And we are going to realise that we don't have a pilot. Oh no! Well, we could do without a pilot. Yeah, I think I want a pilot. So we are going to EVA and jetpack across. This is a really nerve-wracking part because, like, it's very easy to screw up this and end up casting yourself off into space. But it's all going well. Why? What? I don't understand. So now we're going to switch our ship into retrograde. We are going to warp down to the periapsis so that we get a nice efficient burn here. We do need to conserve as much fuel as possible on this craft, because when we do decide to retrieve it, we want to be able to at least put it in orbit of the moon. So we're doing a retrograde burn, just to give ourselves a nice orbit, and then we can switch back to the mothership, which will be returning back to Kerbin. Just getting it nice and low, so we need to worry about maneuvers less a little bit later. The periapsis is the most efficient place to do an orbit and burn when you want to bring your orbit down. Well, a deorbit burn. The apoapsis is the most efficient place when you want to increase your orbit. Of course you need an apoapsis high enough. But we're just going to plan our deorbit burn. Just going to bring it down close to just above the atmosphere. Don't want to bring it into the atmosphere because I like to have a little bit of room to play in case I screw something up, because I am known to do that. Although this video is half an hour long, this entire thing took me a good 3 hours to get set up and get done correctly. And there's a screw up. Our apoapsis has gone off some crazy place. So just we sent out our ship on the target. Bob Kerman is completely unskilled, so I'm having to do maneuvers manually, which is going to be fun for re-entry. Managed to correct our mistake. Just a little fine tuning there to bring the periapsis down a bit further. Just get it nice and close in, so we can have a nice, efficient deceleration burn to bring our orbit closer into Kerbin, so that we're not going crazy speeds when we re-enter the atmosphere. If I was to try and re-enter from where I am, I would very, very likely burn up. The ship would probably also flip because Bob Kerman is a bad pilot. He is somewhat untrained at this point. But after the successful mission, he should be level 1, which will give me retrograde and prograde markers that I can just click to lock onto them. I think at this point I actually decide that I'm just going to deorbit rather than circularize my orbit. This is only going to cost us 870 Delta V, and I think I have something ridiculous. I think I have plenty of Delta V left anyway. Just watching the periapsis. No, I go around again. Manually set to retrograde. And then we're probably going to empty this fuel tank with this burn. On this course, the fuel tank will hopefully burn up in the atmosphere and not leave a bunch of debris. Yep, that's a tank empty, and we just have the command pod left, and I am having to manually correct to retrograde so that I do not burn up. On my older ships, I would come in prograde and have a heat shield at the top of the capsule, but this capsule is 3-man rather than 1-man, so it's like, well, 1 Kerbin. So it's a little bit... It's a bit bigger, and yeah, it would mess with aerodynamics too much to have the heat shield on the top. And re-enter an atmosphere. Moving really quite slowly, considering. Quite often I'm travelling at around about 2,400 meters per second on re-entry. There's our drag chutes out, and our main chutes. Now we can just time warp till splashdown. And then once that's done, we can go land our craft on the Mun and get the base set up. Success! The Kerbins did look very happy there. I did lose a little bit of footage. It wasn't a great deal. It was just circularizing the orbit and preparing to do a retrograde burn to bleed off all my lateral velocity, so that when I do come down to land, I'm not moving to the side, because yeah, like I made a fair few mistakes where I was continuing to move 3 meters a second sideways, and then wondering why I couldn't reduce my velocity to less than 5 meters a second. This burn goes off really quite well. It's not perfect, but I'm not going to complain. Point the ship retrograde. Deploy our landing gear. And just skipped ahead a little bit, because yeah, you didn't need to see the entire descent. We have done a couple of burns to cut our vertical velocity down. And just getting ready for the final. This is basically the final burn now. It's basically a fair amount of throttle control, and I haven't noticed yet, but like my altimeter is set to C, and oh shit, yeah, you need to make sure that it's set to land. I have crashed a few times. It was like looking at the surface like, whoa, that's coming a little bit too quick, what's going on? There we go, nice gentle landing. I wait a little while because it's bouncing around and I'm not entirely sure why. I do figure it out eventually. My stability assist is still on, and yeah, it's trying to flip my ship over. Just deploying solar panels and our communications dishes, which is a little bit annoying thanks to fiddly controls. Once we have action groups, we can just deploy everything in one go, but we're not that far into the game yet, and it is career mode, so it is a little more difficult. And the last of our solar panels to ensure that the craft does not run out of battery, because that's always painful. And this ship should eventually settle, but we're gonna AVA bail and get started setting up our deployable science equipment, which is handily stored in this nice can at the top. And I just realised that that can at the top actually holds 9 modules, not 6. So yeah, oops, I could have brought some spares. I did forget to bring photovoltaic panels to power this entire setup, which is a bit of a nightmare. I'm going to have to launch a craft to come land here, which I've never managed to do. We'll have Bob do the AVA report. He's a scientist. Just skip forward a little bit, and so we have most of our experiments set up. Take a soil sample. Our AVA report. Yes, we'll override that one. Plant a flag. Misspell crater, because of course I did. wonkily make our way back to the lander. And our contract is complete. So we are just going to board him right back aboard and set away. Have a look at this thing, because I've never used one yet. Try to level up the crew and start research. And that's this mission complete. For now, at least. We'll have to get that ship back soon.